Welcome to Real for TV Podcast, Season 1, Episode 4. Here on the Deep Dive, our mission is pretty straightforward. We take your sources, articles, research, maybe our own notes, and we really try to pull out the most important bits of knowledge or insight. Think of it as, your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. We aim for surprising facts, maybe a little humor, to keep you hooked. And this deep dive, especially, feels like it's custom-tailored for you, our listener. Today, we're plunging into something that is, frankly, often too real for TV. It's that complex spot where personal passions, relationships, and the very real strains that can, unfortunately just unravel a marriage all intersect. These are the raw, unfiltered stories, the kind that often unfold quietly, behind the scenes, in everyday life.
Yeah, and to help us navigate this pretty challenging topic, we've gathered a really diverse set of sources. We're starting with a deeply personal online post. It's a truly candid account of a painful marital crisis, and it's directly linked to a high. Then we'll cross-reference that powerful story with insights from articles like Our Sporting Life, insights from a relationship expert, When Hobbies Overtake Marriage, and even a quite provocative piece called Why People with Serious Passions and Hobbies Make the Worst Partners. So each source kind of sheds light on how these intense interests can become catalysts for conflict. And crucially, they offer expert advice on striking that vital balance between, your passions and your relationship health.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we've basically got three main goals. First, we'll really unpack that core online discussion, the story that brings all of this to life. Second, we'll analyze the huge range of reactions and common themes that popped up in the comment section of that post. It's quite revealing. And finally, we'll try to synthesize solutions from all our sources to offer you some practical, actionable advice for navigating similar situations. Because, let's face it, these challenges are common, and they often hit closer to home than you might think. Oh, and before we jump in, please remember to like and subscribe or follow Too Real for TV on whatever platform you prefer. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Podcast, Audible, and Apple Podcasts. It really helps us out. Okay, so the story at the heart of our deep dive today. It starts with a woman. She's 38 years old, married for 11 years to her husband, who's 41. They have two young children, aged 9 and 3. And this situation, like we said, just feels so real, almost uncomfortably so. Too real for TV indeed. The central conflict, the main problem, it revolves around her husband's sudden and frankly extreme obsession with rock climbing. It apparently all kicked off pretty innocently after a climbing gym opened near his office. But what started as maybe just a new hobby, it quickly spiraled out of control. She describes his new routine as spending every free moment climbing. He has, quote, no time for her or the children and acts like they don't exist. What's particularly heartbreaking, I think, is the stark contrast she paints to how he used to be. He was a good husband, she said, someone who spent so much time with our children.
Yeah, that shift is jarring.
Totally. And the obsession escalated dramatically. He was going to the gym every day, sometimes even twice a day, and taking multi-day climbing trips to the Blue Mountains. Just gone.
And what's really striking there, and this is something we saw echoed across several sources, is not just that hobbies demand time, because, many do. It's how quickly that commitment can completely warp someone's priorities. Our Sporting Life, for instance, explicitly points out that a significant time commitment in sports can easily detract from quality time spent together as a couple or with the family. And that leads directly to marital conflicts. It's almost inevitable sometimes.
Right.
And then you have When Hobbies Overtake Marriage, echoing this. It notes how all too easy it is to become passionate or maybe even obsessed with one hobby, all at the expense of other more important priorities. They even give these really vivid examples like the gamer husband who just ignores his wife or the hunter husband who's gone for months at a time. So it often seems less about the specific hobby itself and more about the vacuum it creates in the relationship, the space it takes up.
And here's where this specific story becomes just painfully real. This detail is tough. The wife discovered her husband actually lied about taking a lower-paying job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He voluntarily took it so he would have more time for climbing. He didn't take it to avoid layoffs, which is what he claimed. Just imagine that betrayal.
That's huge.
Right. And meanwhile, this woman is doing all the childcare, all the chores at home, and working full-time. Yet when she tries to talk to him about it, express her concerns, he just dismisses her, tells her she's just jealous of his new hobby.
That level of defensiveness, especially combined with the deception, it just hits right at the core of trust and communication in a marriage, doesn't it? Our Sporting Life really highlights these communication challenges. It talks about how conflicting schedules, travel commitments, and emotional investments in sports take precedence, and that inevitably creates distance and strain. And then there's the money side of things, too. Financial considerations can strain the family budget, leading to tensions, disagreements, and ultimately marital discord.
Yeah, the job light ties into that too.
Exactly. And when you add that layer of perceived criticism, which Insights from a relationship expert points out, that defensiveness makes any kind of meaningful dialogue incredibly difficult. He likely heard her concern as, an attack on his identity or his passion, rather than what it probably was, a cry for connection, a plea for her husband back.
It's just heartbreaking. And despite this profound indifference from him, she took some really decisive, though clearly painful steps. She consulted a solicitor, she enrolled herself and her children in counseling, and she found a new flat for them to move into. Her words are just so raw. She explicitly states she is tired and feels like she failed as wife and a mom, which is just awful.
Oh, that's tough to hear.
Isn't it? But she says she can't stay like this.
Mm.
And the sheer lack of empathy from him is, well, it's shocking. She told her husband she was moving out, seeking a divorce, and he apparently showed no reaction at all.
Wow.
Continued as though everything is normal, didn't even ask what he could do to stop her. It's like a silence that just screams volumes.
Yeah. A complete shutdown.
So, unsurprisingly, the original post generated a huge response online. It really shows how deeply these kinds of situations resonate with so many people. It's a real testament to how universal these struggles can be, even if they feel isolating when you're in them. Let's dive into some of the things that just flooded the comments section, starting with, well, the immediate outpouring of support for the wife.
Oh, absolutely. The validation for her was overwhelming. Just comment after comment reinforcing her perspective.
Yeah.
People saying things like, you haven't failed. He has failed all of you.
Right.
And he's the one who walked away from his family. It's not on you. You could really feel people identifying with her, feeling her pain.
Yeah, that solidarity must have meant something. But what's also fascinating is the sheer diversity of theories about why the husband was acting this way. Some people immediately jump to, well, suspicions of infidelity.
Oh, definitely. The affair partner theory was a really strong thread in those comments. You saw things like, he's climbing someone else, or my exact first thought, he's having an affair with someone at the rock climbing center.
Mm-hmm.
One commenter even quipped, my gym is like a giant singles club, which,
Right, it raises questions. It's a common fear, isn't it, when someone suddenly becomes so detached and secretive.
Absolutely, a natural conclusion for some to jump to.
And then quite a few others saw something maybe more akin to addiction or perhaps a midlife crisis. That's a narrative we hear often in these kinds of too real for TV scenarios.
Yes, the addiction angle was very prominent. Commenters were describing climbing itself as highly addictive or like an addiction. They talked about the adrenaline and the hormonal rush, likening it almost to a drug. Yeah, and one commenter who identified as an addiction counselor made a really crucial point. They said, addictions don't have to be a drug. It can be an activity. It becomes a problem when it starts to affect other areas of life.
That makes sense.
The midlife crisis theory was also floated, along with what some called an achiever mentality, this sort of deep-seated need to be the best at something, even if it's just a hobby.
Right, the competitive drive taking over. And then there was this whole other significant discussion around neurodivergence, specifically ADHD. That was a really insightful thread, I thought.
It really was. Many commenters suggested things like undiagnosed ADHD or talked about extreme hyperfocus or hyperfixation. For those who might not know, hyperfixation is that really intense, almost uncontrollable absorption in a single activity that can often come with ADHD. And they noted how climbing, specifically, could provide that unique sensory and cognitive engagement for someone with ADHD. People said things like, it makes my brain quiet, or provides a needed dopamine rush, or that it's a full-body experience where it's the only time my brain can think about one thing.
That's a perspective I hadn't really considered.
It's compelling. But it's really important to note that while these commenters suggested this might explain the intensity of his behavior,
Right.
they were very clear to emphasize that it does not excuse his behavior in any way. It provides context, maybe, but it doesn't absolve him of responsibility for the impact on his family.
That's a crucial distinction. Explanation, not excuse.
Exactly.
We also saw just a lot of shared experiences flooding in, people grappling with strikingly similar situations, not just with climbing, but with all sorts of intense hobbies. It really highlighted how widespread these kinds of painful issues are.
Absolutely. In the comments on that original online post, we saw people whose partners or even fathers picked up rock climbing, got really into it, and just disappeared. Vanished from family life. There were some chilling comparisons made to figures who famously chose intense activities over family, like those in the
Hmm.
Free Solo documentary, or even people involved in wingsuit base jumping, which obviously carries huge risks.
Wow, yeah.
And then, looking across our other sources, like the comment section from Nurturing Marriage, people shared stories about partners obsessed with motorcycles or disc golf or fishing.
Fishing, really.
Yeah, one person described their partner as being 247 watching, talking, or at fish stores, just consumed by it, or golf, or even gaming. And these obsessions led to really familiar complaints. Feelings of neglect, a lack of affection, serious financial strain, feeling like you're just a housekeeper. There was even one extreme tragic case mentioned involving a husband whose go-karting hobby led to a fatal injury, leaving his widow with not just grief, but a significant financial burden. So, while the hobbies vary, the underlying pain and marital strain share this common, heartbreaking thread.
Definitely. And, what's really important to highlight as we sift through all these online discussions is that alongside all the relatable insights and shared pain, you also find some, let's say, wildly unconventional solutions or advice being offered up.
Oh, yes.
It's a stark reminder of the digital frontier we inhabit, right?
Yeah.
The wild west of online
It
information.
really is. And it's worth just briefly mentioning the presence of comments suggesting things like spellcasters for relationship repair.
Seriously.
Seriously. Or even hackers for spying on spouses.
Good grief.
Yeah. And look, we're simply presenting these as examples of the truly varied landscape of comments you find in online forums. To be absolutely crystal clear, this deep dive is not endorsing their efficacy in any way.
Right, of course not.
We're just presenting them as part of the raw source material we were given. It kind of underscores the desperation people can feel when they're facing these kinds of deep relationship crises. They'll grasp at anything.
That makes sense. Okay, so this brings us to the really crucial question. How do you even begin to untangle a situation this complex when things feel so broken? Thankfully, our expert sources do offer some more structured, concrete pathways. So how can we navigate this really delicate balance between personal passions and relationship health?
Well, a good starting point is a foundational idea from Rebecca Williams in her Insights from a Relationship Expert piece. She talks about the importance of a balance of connection and autonomy.
Okay, connection and autonomy.
Yeah. She argues that healthy relationships actually thrive when individuals do maintain their personal interests and hobbies. It allows them to maintain their individuality and ultimately bring more richness and fulfillment into the relationship. She's quite clear that it's simply unrealistic to expect one partner to meet every single one of another person's needs.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, hobbies are generally good for us,
Yeah.
right? Adds dimension to life.
Exactly. But when that balance tips so dramatically, like we saw in the main story, that's when it becomes deeply problematic.
So if you feel like a hobby is threatening to overtake your marriage, where do you even begin to address it?
Okay, so the article Nurturing Marriage offers 5 things you can do when hobbies threaten to overtake your marriage. Pretty direct. First, and this might sound obvious, but it's crucial, nurture your marriage. This means consciously, deliberately giving your spouse your best time, your best attention, and your very best self.
Easier said than done sometimes, especially when you're feeling neglected.
Absolutely. But the article suggests making things like date night, getaways, and talk rituals mandatory, building that dedicated connection time back in.
Okay, mandatory connection time. What's next?
Second is to find shared interests and hobbies. Actively work together to create and develop activities you both love doing. This helps the relationship thrive and your friendship blossom. It's about deliberately rebuilding that common ground, that shared enjoyment.
Right, finding something you can connect over besides the kids or household chores.
Exactly. Third is communication. We talked about how this broke down in the story. Effective communication is vital in any marriage, as our sporting life also emphasizes. Couples should prioritize open and honest communication. That means setting aside dedicated time for meaningful conversations and actively listening to each other's concerns. No dismissals.
Listening is key.
Yes. And this includes discussing openly how each partner feels about the hobbies, maybe setting some boundaries on the time spent, and perhaps even who that time is spent with, if that's become an issue.
That seems like the point where things got really stuck in the original story. The dismissal, the defensiveness.
Precisely. Which leads naturally to the fourth point. Make connection a priority. The core issue, really, when hobbies strain a marriage is often this profound sense of disconnection. So, recommendations here include things like learning each other's love language, really understanding individual needs for connection, and creating special rituals of connection. Small things you do regularly just for each other.
Rebuilding intimacy, essentially.
Yes, rebuilding that specific marital intimacy. And finally, number 5, with some important caveats, is to remember personal hobbies are important. The article stresses that hobbies aren't inherently the bad guy here. In fact, they can be good for a marriage when they take their rightful place in each spouse's list of priorities.
Okay, rightful place. What does that mean exactly?
It means they don't dominate your life, but also they aren't swept under the rug either. It's about integration, finding a healthy place for them, not necessarily total eradication. Balance again.
That makes sense. Now, Rebecca Williams also offered some specific advice aimed at the partner who is maybe too engrossed in the hobby or for the spouse who's trying desperately to reach them. That seems crucial when communication feels so broken.
Yes, focusing on the husband's perspective in that original online post, Williams really stresses that it's essential to explore what the husband heard when his spouse made her request or expressed concern. Did he perceive it purely as a critique? Did he hear an implication that he's selfish or uncaring?
Understanding his defensive reaction.
Exactly. Understanding that can be the first step to addressing the defensiveness itself. The goal, she says, is to help him understand why that check-in or that request for attention is so important to his spouse. Often it stems from a deep need for reassurance or an awareness of her own vulnerability in the relationship at that moment.
So it's not just nagging, it's a need.
Precisely. And she suggests that by making even a small effort to check in, the husband can demonstrate care and commitment, which can go a long way towards strengthening the relationship. It's about bridging that gap of understanding and perceived intent.
That's really practical advice. Now, what about Evan Mark Karkitz? His take was, well, pretty blunt, suggesting that passionate hobbyists can potentially make the worst partners. That's strong language.
It is strong language. Katz brings up what he calls the finite hours argument. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, right?
Right.
And when a significant chunk of those hours is consumed by work and then another huge chunk by an intense hobby, something else, usually the relationship, inevitably gets neglected. There just isn't time left. He also coins this rather evocative term, the plight of the training widow.
Training widow.
Yeah, it describes a spouse, often a wife in his examples, left feeling essentially widowed by a partner who works incredibly hard and then plays equally hard, dedicating all their remaining energy and focus to their passion, be it marathon training, cycling, or whatever.
Wow. I can see that.
Now, Katz isn't actually advocating for people to abandon their passions entirely. That's not his point. Instead, he emphasizes that if a hobby is consistently pursued at the expense of your relationship, then it is a serious problem that needs addressing. And the ultimate question he poses, the one he wants the affected partner to ask themselves, is a really powerful one. How happy you are in your relationship.
Focusing on your own well-being.
Exactly. That's the metric that truly matters in the end, according to him. Not whether the hobby is good or bad, but how the dynamic is affecting you.
Okay. So let's shift gears slightly. For those incredibly difficult situations where, like the original story, the marital strain just becomes irreconcilable, what are the more formal paths forward, as detailed in our sources, for those who simply feel they can't stay?
Yeah, sometimes it does reach that point. Our Sporting Life points to several supportive resources for when things break down. First, there's professional help. Things like family therapists or relationship counselors. They can be instrumental in either attempting reconciliation or, if that's not possible, helping navigate the separation process more constructively.
Right. Therapy isn't just for staying together.
Absolutely not. And if divorce becomes the path, then legal advice from family lawyers becomes necessary. They help with the formal divorce proceedings, the division of assets, and crucially, child custody arrangements. The article also lists other resources like marriage support groups and online forums, mentioning places like Relate and Family Lives that can offer guidance and a sense of community support, which can be invaluable.
And documentation, right? That came up in the comments too.
Yes, that's often stressed, especially in the context of comments about the importance of documenting everything, finances, time commitments, incidents, for any potential legal proceedings. It sounds calculating, but it can be necessary.
Okay. So wrapping this section up, it seems really clear that if a hobby is pushing a relationship to the absolute brink, it's rarely just about stopping the hobby itself. It's about a much deeper, more fundamental reevaluation of priorities, isn't it? And crucially, making a conscious, consistent effort to actually nurture that connection that's been lost.
That sums it up perfectly. It's about intentionality.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, it feels pretty clear that while hobbies, they bring immense joy and fulfillment to us as individuals, when they start to cast a really long shadow over our relationships, it's just a stark reminder, isn't it? That true connection requires active nurturing, it requires shared presence, and it requires a continuous choice to prioritize the people we love.
Yeah, I think the crucial takeaway from all these varied sources, and definitely from the very real, sometimes painful situations discussed today, is really the importance of continuous, honest communication. And that conscious choice, day in and day out, to prioritize the relationship itself, ensuring that our individual passions enhance our lives rather than detracting from those fundamental bonds.
Well said. Integration, not domination.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope this exploration into the complexities of hobbies and relationships has given you some valuable insights, maybe provoked some thought. Remember, you can find Too Real for TV and more of our deep dives on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Audible, and Apple Podcasts. Please do remember to like and subscribe or follow us. It helps us keep bringing you these conversations so you can stay well informed and maybe discover some surprising facts with us each week. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep connecting.